Soup splashed across the pavement as Aaliyah Monroe caught the collector's wrist, and every spoon in the alley stopped. She was a black woman, working before dawn in her family's struggling Seoul restaurant. At night, she served champagne beneath hotel chandeliers. Every tip went toward overdue invoices and the red foreclosure notice taped across their window. Now her cream blouse carried flour, and her banquet badge still hung from her collar, yet she stood between an elderly owner and the men demanding his money. A black sedan waited behind them. Kang Tae-Seong stepped forward in a tailored suit and a silver watch. Seoul's underworld called him the Quiet Dragon. The black dragon tattoo climbing his left neck was visible above his open collar. Aaliyah made his collector pick up the fallen bowl. Then she faced the Mafia boss without lowering her eyes. The next morning, Tae-Seong placed a 7-day girlfriend contract beside a black fountain pen. He offered enough money to save her restaurant. In return, she had to enter his world of summit dinners, auctions, and whispered threats. Aaliyah uncapped a red pen. She crossed out every clause that tried to control her identity. He expected her signature. He did not expect her terms. And when she took his arm beneath the chandeliers, neither understood what their bargain had set in motion. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. Aaliyah caught the collector's wrist before his ledger struck the old man's counter. Bowls rattled, lunch customers lowered their spoons, and the collector stared at the slender black woman gripping his sleeve as if Seoul itself had made a mistake. "You have his payment," she said. "You don't get his dignity too." The old restaurant owner whispered her name, begging her to stop. Aaliyah Monroe released the sleeve, but she remained between him and the collector. Her cream blouse still carried a flour mark from her morning shift. In 40 minutes, she had to cross the city and serve drinks at a hotel banquet. Missing that bus meant losing wages she had already promised to a creditor. The collector swept a bowl from the counter. A man near the entrance caught it before it broke. Conversation vanished. Kang Tae-Seong set the bowl upright. His tailored black suit made no sound as he approached, yet every man wearing an earpiece moved aside. Short black hair was combed back from a clean-shaven face. A simple watch rested above the small edge of a black dragon tattoo near his wrist. Aaliyah looked from him to the collector. "Is he yours?" Nobody breathed. Tae-Seong glanced at the frightened owner, then at the untouched envelope of cash on the counter. "He works for me." Then teach him the difference between collecting and humiliating. Park Min-jae, Tae-Seong's closest lieutenant, stepped forward. Tae-Seong raised 2 fingers, and Min-jae stopped. The collector bent at once, retrieved the fallen chopsticks, and placed them beside the bowl. "Apologize," Tae-Seong said. The collector bowed to the owner. Aaliyah should have left. Her bus was already turning the corner, visible through the window. Still, she faced the man everyone else feared. Being powerful doesn't mean everyone has to be afraid of you. Tae-Seong studied her flower-streaked sleeve. "You missed your bus. Send him the bill." She ran. By midnight, Aaliyah's feet burned inside borrowed heels. She cleared champagne glasses while politicians laughed beneath hotel chandeliers. At the room's far end, Tae-Seong sat with Yoon Hae-jin, an elegant woman in an ivory silk suit. Hae-jin spoke without turning her head. Tae-Seong answered once, then watched Aaliyah balance a tray through the crowd. A hotel manager blocked her path. The VIP table requested someone else. They requested water. Water has no ethnicity. The manager took the tray. "Go downstairs." Aaliyah untied her apron and headed for the service elevator. She needed the shift more than she needed the last word. Tae-Seong noticed that choice. He also noticed her return 10 minutes later, carrying 2 trays because a younger server had twisted her ankle. Min-jae leaned closer. Her name is Aaliyah Monroe, 30. 2 jobs, no criminal ties. I didn't ask. You looked twice. Across the table, Hee-jin followed Tae-seong's gaze. Her smile stayed fixed while her fingers tightened around a crystal stem. Aaliyah reached home after 2. Evelyn Monroe sat at the restaurant's back table beneath one working bulb. A red notice lay beside her cold tea. The paper gave them 21 days before seizure. Why didn't you call me? Aaliyah asked. Evelyn folded the notice along an old crease. Because you were earning money we already spent. A framed sketch hung over the empty register. The flower her father had drawn for the restaurant sign. Aaliyah opened the cash tin. Rent receipts, supplier invoices, and 73,000 won waited inside. She removed her earrings and added them to the tin. Evelyn covered her hand. Your father wanted a home, not a grave for your life. Then we keep the home. At 7 the next morning, a black sedan waited outside. Min-jae stood beside it holding Aaliyah's lost employee badge. Mr. Kang requests 10 minutes. Mr. Kang can request an appointment. Min-jae offered a plain card. On the back, someone had written a number large enough to clear every debt. Aaliyah tore the card in half. That was the appointment, she said. Tae-seong came to the restaurant that afternoon. He arrived without the men who usually formed a wall around him, though Min-jae watched from the car. Evelyn placed 1 cup of coffee on the table and carried the pot away. You have 5 minutes, Aaliyah said. Tae-seong set a folder beside the cup. 7 days. Several Korean families were gathering for a week of private dinners, auctions, and negotiations. Hee-jin's family expected him to announce an engagement at the final gala. A public relationship with someone outside their alliance would delay that pressure without creating an immediate refusal. You need a shield, Aaliyah said. I need a convincing girlfriend. Try being likable. His mouth almost moved. You challenged an armed man over a stranger. Convincing people you chose me will be harder. She pushed the folder back. No. He rose. The amount stands until 9 tomorrow. My answer won't. At dawn, 2 creditors chained the restaurant doors. Evelyn stood on the sidewalk holding her apron, while the breakfast delivery spoiled behind the glass. Aaliyah called every lender she knew. Each voice asked for collateral she lacked. Her father's flower remained visible through the chained doors. At 8:43, she walked into Tae-seong's headquarters. An attorney placed 20 pages before her: public affection, scheduled appearances, confidentiality, security protocols. Aaliyah crossed out 3 wardrobe clauses and the line granting Tae-seong final approval over her statements. The attorney reached for the papers. Tae-seong stopped him. Aaliyah wrote 1 sentence beneath the signatures. You don't decide what I wear, what I say, or who I am. That defeats several pages, Tae-seong said. Then your pages were weak. He signed. That evening, a stylist brought gowns to his penthouse. Aaliyah chose a fitted midnight blue dress, kept her understated earrings, and refused the diamond necklace laid across a velvet case. When she entered the alliance dinner, dozens of guests turned. Whispers crossed the room before her first step landed. Hee-jin approached with a measured smile. You must be the surprise. Aaliyah Monroe. Surprises usually have names. A businessman near Hee-jin asked Tae-seong whether his guest understood where she was. Aaliyah heard him. She placed her hand through Tae-seong's arm and walked straight toward the head table. For the first time that day, Tae-seong lost control of his expression. Then, Hee-jin lifted her glass and announced that she had arranged a private test for the new couple. Hee-jin placed 2 cards face down between them and asked Aaliyah to name Tae-seong's greatest weakness. Around the table, smiles sharpened. Tae-seong reached for his glass, giving her nothing. Aaliyah turned 1 card over. It held a photograph of Tae-seong leaving a hospital 3 years earlier. The other showed Yoonhae Jin beside him at a family funeral. His weakness is obvious, Aaliyah said. He attends parties where people confuse cruelty with intelligence. Someone coughed into a napkin. Park Min-jae looked down, hiding the edge of a smile. Haejin kept hers perfectly still. "And what does he admire about you?" she asked. Aaliyah met Tae-Seong's eyes. "That I leave when I'm bored." She rose. Tae-Seong stood with her, abandoning a dinner planned around his obedience. By the time they reached the elevator, 3 alliance members were already making calls. "You failed her test," he said. "You followed me out. I think I passed." The next afternoon, Tae-Seong escorted her into a charity auction beneath a ceiling of white lights. Guests lifted numbered paddles over watches, vacations, and wine they did not want. Each bid became a challenge, aimed across the room. Aaliyah watched without joining. Then a small canvas appeared, painted by children from a local shelter. Blue stems bent beneath red flowers, each petal uneven. The auctioneer opened low. Nobody raised a hand. Aaliyah lifted her paddle. Haejin bid against her at once. The price doubled, then tripled. Tae-Seong leaned closer. "Stop when you choose. I know what I can afford." She bid once more. Haejin glanced toward Tae-Seong, expecting intervention. He remained silent. Haejin lowered her paddle. Later, Tae-Seong found Aaliyah waiting beside the wrapped painting. "You ignored every valuable item." That one was valuable. She showed him a photograph on her phone. Her father had drawn the same clumsy flowers across lunch bags, receipts, and birthday cards. Tae-Seong studied the screen longer than the painting. "Your father drew them?" Until his hands stopped cooperating. "What did yours give you?" Tae-Seong's jaw shifted. "Rules. Useful ones." One was. She waited. He offered nothing else. Aaliyah put the phone away and asked Min-jae to carry the canvas. No second question followed. Inside the car, Tae-Seong watched her reflection in the window. Most people attacked silence until it surrendered something useful. She had recognized a locked door and stepped back from it. On the third evening, Aaliyah crossed a crowded reception and heard someone call her childhood nickname. Han Suk-jin opened his arms before she could answer. He had worked beside her father during the restaurant's first year, then built a successful import company across the river. "You vanished," Aaliyah said. "You changed numbers, twice." They laughed over an old story involving burned dumplings and a fire inspector. Across the room, Tae-Seong stopped listening to a councilman. His gaze settled on Han Suk-jin's hand resting near Aaliyah's elbow. Min-jae moved beside him. "The councilman asked you a question. Answer it." "I don't know what he asked." Tae-Seong crossed the room. He placed one hand at Aaliyah's waist, closer than the contract required. "Introduce us," he said. Han Suk-jin offered a polite bow. "An old family friend." "How old?" Aaliyah looked up at Tae-Seong. "You sound jealous." "I'm protecting the arrangement." "From dumpling stories?" Han Suk-jin excused himself, still smiling. Aaliyah removed Tae-Seong's hand, but his fingers resisted for half a second. In the car, she asked why a fictional relationship needed real suspicion. Tae-Seong stared ahead. "He knew your debts. He knew my father." "That is not an answer. It is when you don't own the question." The words ended the argument. They did not end his attention. On day 4, Aaliyah changed the schedule. She told the driver to take them to the restaurant instead of a private club. Tae-Seong arrived with Min-jae and 2 security cars. Aaliyah pointed at the cars. "They stay outside." "No," Tae-Seong said. Evelyn Monroe opened the door behind her. "Then dinner gets cold." Tae-Seong entered alone. Evelyn handed him an apron before he reached the table. Nobody had prepared him for that. Aaliyah laughed when he examined it like a hostile document. "You wanted convincing," she said. "Families work." He tied it badly. Evelyn corrected the knot, then ordered him to carry bowls. For an hour, no one bowed. Aaliyah chopped scallions beside her mother. Evelyn tasted the broth from Aaliyah's spoon, added pepper, and pushed the pot back. Tae-Seong watched them argue about salt, then quietly set 3 places instead of 2. During dinner, Evelyn asked him no questions about money or alliances. She asked whether he slept enough. Tae-Seong nearly dismissed it, but Aaliyah waited. "Not usually," he said. "Then eat more." Evelyn filled his bowl. His phone vibrated twice. He ignored it. When Min-jae finally entered, the restaurant had been closed for 40 minutes. "We have a problem," Min-jae said. Tae-Seong stood. Warmth left his face before he reached the door. Outside, Min-jae showed him surveillance photographs taken that afternoon. Aaliyah entering the restaurant, Evelyn locking the register, Tae-Seong arriving without his men. One image had been marked with a red circle around Aaliyah. Across the street, Han Suk-jin lowered a phone and stepped into a waiting car. Yoon Hae-jin sat inside. "Now you see it," she said. Han Suk-jin looked back at the restaurant window. Tae-Seong stood behind Aaliyah while she helped Evelyn clear the table, close enough to protect her without touching her. "Yes," he said, "she is no longer pretending." Hye-jin's gaze stayed on Tae-Seong. "Neither is he." A brick crossed the restaurant before Aaliyah could reach the lights. It struck her father's framed flower and drove glass across the empty tables. Aaliyah Monroe pulled her daughter behind the counter as a second brick shattered the front window. 2 men entered through the broken door. One kicked over a chair. The other placed a photograph beside the register, the same image that had carried a red circle around Aaliyah. "Tell Kang Tae-Seong to remember his place." Aaliyah rose before Evelyn could stop her. "You came armed to frighten 2 women in a closed restaurant. Which part should impress me?" The nearest man grabbed her wrist. She drove the heel of her hand into his nose, twisted free, and pushed Evelyn toward the kitchen. Tires screamed outside. Park Min-jae entered with 3 security men before the attacker could reach inside his coat. The fight lasted seconds. One man escaped through the broken window. Min-jae pinned the other against the counter while Aaliyah pressed a towel around her cut palm. Tae-Seong arrived before the police. He crossed the wreckage, saw blood soaking the towel, and seized the captured man's collar. "Who sent you?" The man smiled through a split lip. "Ask the woman you embarrassed." Min-jae pulled Tae-Seong back as Aaliyah stepped between them. "My mother is here." His hand opened. The attacker dropped against the counter. Tae-Seong turned toward Evelyn, who stood beside the ruined flower drawing with a broom in her hands. "Take her somewhere secure," he told Min-jae. "We aren't leaving our restaurant," Aaliyah said. This stopped being a request. She lifted the bloodied towel, and this stopped being your decision. For one sharp moment, they faced each other across broken bowls and scattered receipts. Then another engine roared in the alley. Tae-Seong moved first, covering Aaliyah as a dark sedan swept past the window. 3 shots struck the metal frame. Min-jae forced Evelyn into the kitchen, while his men returned fire toward the tires. The sedan vanished. Tae-Seong remained over Aaliyah, one arm braced against the floor. A bullet had torn his jacket near the shoulder. She touched the ripped cloth, searching for blood. "I'm fine," he said. "You could have been killed. So could you." That answer followed them to his headquarters. Min-jae placed photographs, vehicle records, and the abandoned attacker's phone across a conference table. One message contained the final gala address. Another carried Aaliyah's work schedule. Han Sok-jin's number appeared beneath both. Aaliyah stared at it until the screen dimmed. The man who had laughed about her father's burned dumplings had given strangers the hours Evelyn opened the kitchen alone. "Bring him in," Tae-Seong said. Min-jae gathered the evidence. "Hye-jin will deny the order." "Let her." Aaliyah caught Min-jae's sleeve. What happens when you find Han Suk-jin? Neither man answered. She released him. After Min Jae left, Tae-Seong opened the contract and turned to the termination clause. His pen crossed the page once. The agreement ends now. Aaliyah looked from the ink to his face. Because they saw me bleed? Because they will try again. Then protect us. His pen pressed harder. Distance is protection. She waited for him to look up. He kept his eyes on the contract, using paper as armor. Yesterday you ate at our table, she said. Today I became inconvenient. You became a target. I was a target the moment you offered money. He signed beneath the crossed line. Min Jae will arrange security for you and Evelyn. Aaliyah removed the ring he had given her for appearances and set it over his signature. Her cut reopened as her fingers left the table. A drop of blood landed beside his name. 7 days became 5, she said. You always were good at changing the price. She walked out before his control cracked. Through the glass wall, Min Jae watched Tae-Seong grip the chair she had left behind. You stopped pretending 3 days ago, Min Jae said. Tae-Seong closed the contract. That is why she goes. On day 6, Aaliyah returned to the restaurant carrying plywood. The security men across the street kept their distance. Evelyn swept glass, while Aaliyah covered the window and rehung her father's drawing inside a bare frame. A creditor arrived before noon. He removed the seizure chain and handed Evelyn a stamped release. There has been a mistake, Aaliyah said. The balance was paid this morning. All accounts. The receipt named a holding company she recognized from Tae-Seong's contract. Aaliyah folded it once, went upstairs, and emptied the emergency account he had funded. It was not enough. She added her wages, sold the auction painting back to the gallery, and called Han Suk-jin's company to demand the money he owed her father. His assistant transferred it within minutes. By evening, Aaliyah carried a bank draft into Tae-Seong's office. Staff were preparing folders for the final gala. Yoon Hae-jin's name stood beside his on every seating chart. Aaliyah laid the draft over them. I thought our agreement was over. It is. Then why did you pay? Tae-Seong looked at the amount. She had returned every one, including the auction price. The restaurant was never part of their fight, he said. Neither was my mother. They brought the fight through our window. He pushed the draft back. Aaliyah covered it with her palm. Keep it. No. You need it. I agreed to pretend to love you. I never agreed to owe you my life. His hand stopped beside hers. For once, money had failed to move the person across from him. Aaliyah left the draft and walked away. The elevator doors closed on Tae-Seong standing alone beside 2 gala invitations, one bearing Hye-jin's name and one left blank. Then Min Jae entered with a recovered call recording. Han Suk-jin's voice filled the office, promising that the final gala would end with Aaliyah's restaurant in ashes unless Tae-Seong arrived with Hye-jin. Tae-Seong fed the recording into the gala's security system, while Min Jae traced Han Suk-jin's call through 3 private servers. The final signal originated inside Tae-Seong's own headquarters. Someone with executive access had opened every door for him. Suk-jin is already at the gala, Min Jae said. His men control the east entrance. Tae-Seong took Hye-jin's invitation from the desk and tore it in half. Move our people outside, quietly. And Aaliyah? His gaze fell on the bank draft she had returned. Keep her away from this. Across the city, Aaliyah listened as Evelyn replayed a voicemail from her late husband. Han Suk-jin's assistant had sent old account files with the payment, and one attachment held the recording. Her father's voice named dates, shipping numbers, and money Suk-jin had hidden through the restaurant. Then another voice entered, younger but unmistakable. Your loyalty will be remembered, Han Suk-jin told someone. Kang's father leaves the warehouse tonight. Aaliyah called Min Jae. I have the night Tae-Seong's father died. Silence held for one breath. send everything. I'm coming with it. No. She grabbed the restaurant keys. You need the original phone, not another copy. At the gala, Haichin waited beneath the alliance seal while every camera faced the entrance. The doors opened and Tae-Seong crossed the room alone. Conversations broke around him. Han Suk-jin watched from the elders' table, one hand resting beside his phone. Hye-jin met Tae-Seong before he reached the stage. Stand beside me for 10 minutes. We announce the alliance and your little problem disappears. You sent men to her restaurant. I applied pressure. Suk-jin chose the method. She offered her hand as photographers closed in. Refuse me, and you lose millions. Tae-Seong stepped onto the stage without taking it. Then it will be expensive. He faced the families. There will be no engagement. There will be no alliance purchased with one woman's safety. But Haijin's father rose. Half the room followed. Contracts closed. Tae-Seong lost 3 shipping agreements before he left the microphone, but Hee-jin lost the marriage she had intended to turn into power. Min-jae reached him near the service corridor. Seok-jin triggered the coup. 6 directors are moving against headquarters. Lock the accounts. Already done. Aaliyah found something else. The lights above the ballroom screens flickered. Aaliyah stood inside the control room with the original phone connected to the system. 2 guards pushed against the door while she loaded her father's recording. Min-jae braced the handle and nodded. Play it, he said. Han Suk-jin's voice rolled across the gala. Shipping numbers appeared beside transfers made 21 years earlier. Then came his order placing Tae-Seong's father at the warehouse where assassins waited. Suk-jin lunged for the control booth. Tae-Seong intercepted him between the tables. Your father was going to surrender everything, Suk-jin said. I saved the organization. You built my loyalty on his grave. Suk-jin reached inside his jacket. Aaliyah saw the motion through the booth window and cut the ballroom lights. Min-jae drove Suk-jin to the floor in the darkness. When emergency lights rose, the gun lay beneath Tae-Seong's shoe, and every director had heard the confession. Police entered through the east doors with financial investigators Aaliyah had contacted during the drive. The files tied Suk-jin to the murder, the attack, and the coup accounts. Hye-jin backed away as officers took his phone and closed around him. Tae-Seong found Aaliyah beside the control board. You should have stayed away. You tried that once. He could have killed you, and silence would have protected him. Her answer left no bargain between them. She had entered his war-carrying proof, with no payment waiting beyond it. Before dawn, Tae-Seong went to the restaurant alone. Evelyn opened the door, studied him, then returned to the kitchen. Aaliyah stood beside the repaired frame as he placed their original agreement on a table. Everything between us began because I paid you to stay. He tore through both signatures. The halves fell across the returned bank draft. So this time, stay when I have nothing to offer except myself. Aaliyah picked up one torn page. That's a terrible sales pitch. For the first time, his laugh reached her without restraint. She set the paper down and stepped closer. I won't belong to you, she said. I know. I choose my own door. Then choose it every day. She touched his face. Ask me tomorrow. Stay tomorrow. Yes. That morning, Tae-Seong removed the directors who had financed Suk-jin. He opened the criminal accounts to prosecutors, dissolved the collection crews, and moved the legal businesses into audited companies. Men who had served through fear received a choice: lawful work or departure. Min-jae accepted the first legitimate executive contract with a dry glance at its length. 20 pages, he said. Aaliyah will destroy it. Then make the pages stronger. Months later, Evelyn turned the restaurant sign from closed to open. Every table filled before sunset. The new kitchen came from a group of local investors Aaliyah had found herself. Each share negotiated without Tae-Seong's name or money. He arrived without an entourage and took the corner table. Aaliyah brought his meal after the last waiting customer sat. "You saved it," he said. She looked toward Evelyn, who was correcting a cook beside the stove. "We saved it." A small envelope waited beside his bowl. Aaliyah narrowed her eyes. No contracts. No contracts. Inside sat 2 tickets and a reservation for 7 days away from Seoul. She turned them over, searching for hidden terms. Another week? Tae-Seong drew out the chair opposite him. "This one has no ending date." Aaliyah sat while the restaurant moved around them. He waited for her shift to end, and she reached across the table by choice. Freedom chose them both. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever confused paying a debt with earning a heart? Would you tear up security to choose someone freely? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about chosen love, vulnerability, and belonging, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.